Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your Cybersecurity Series. My name is Vlad and I'm here to help you and support you in your cybersecurity journey. Today, this is episode 20. We continue our series of videos on cryptography, but as this is still an introduction, I wanted to really set the record straight because if you are interested in cryptography and cybersecurity in general, you are going to come across a second notion, which is steganography. And stegano and crypto are often confused or mixed with each other. And it's important that you understand what cryptography really is about versus steganography, knowing that attackers today can use both or a combination of both. All right, let's jump into the content. So first, steganography, just like cryptography, has a Greek origin, a Greek etymology. And steganography comes from the Greek word steganos, which means covered. So covered as in different layers of information. And the idea is that we have a secret message that we want to cover with legitimate decoy content, so to speak. So the idea is that we are going to embed our secret message within a legitimate content that will be used as a decoy, as a noise to blur the overall picture. So the idea, and I really want to stress this out because this is the main difference with cryptography, the message is there in plain text for anyone to see. However, for those who know where to look, and that's really the idea. Reading the message really requires insider knowledge, and I will give you some example. Altogether, we can use a wide variety of different media to convey information via steganography. We can use text, we can use sound, pictures and images, we can use movies or videos as well. Basically, it applies to anything. In this course, I want to start by giving you some examples based on text. So the main example of steganography is something that you might have seen. We find those exercises in children's book or also in newspapers. The idea is that you are presented with a grid of letters and you need to find some of the hidden words. So of course the words, as it's a game, are provided at the bottom. So here we are looking at allergies, cough, dust, exam, and so on and so forth. And the idea is that you have to connect the letters one with another, from left to right, right to left, vertically, horizontally, sometimes even in diagonal. But that's just to show you the illustration of steganography. The idea is that the real message, which in this case are the words at the bottom, are hidden within a mixture of patterns and letters that are just put there as a decoy. Perhaps a second example to also show you that we can convey messages just by using specific characters in a sentence. So here, our secret is secret inside, that's the characters in red. And you can see that we can hide this message by using the very first letter of each of the words in the sentence. So since everyone can read, encoding text in neutral sentences is doubtfully effective. And you see that if you take the S, the E, the C, etc., you get secret inside. And this is something that has been done for a long time. Some people also do it in poetry by using the first letter of each of the verses. But that's the principle. And by now, you might be wondering, is this all steganography has to offer? Is this just about hiding or planting specific characters inside a wider text? The trick is that it can get a bit more complex. And I'm going to show you a third example. Here we have a bigger text, and the text is structured along a paragraph with a certain width size, so a certain width. And basically, here we are not going to look at individual characters, but we are rather looking at whether or not there is a letter at the end of the paragraph that exceeds a certain width. So if we have a character or letter, we are going to code that as a 1. If we don't have a character, we are going to put a 0. And that way we can embed a secret message, which in this case is 1100101. That doesn't sound like much, but if you remember that encoding a letter with the ASCII, maybe we need to do a course on that, but if you Google it, ASCII, so ASCII is a way of encoding characters and more specifically letters. You will understand that with 7 or 8 bits of information, so 7 or 8 zeros and ones, you can encode a character. So in this case, we could encode, for example, character A, B, etc. So it takes a lot more text to convey important messages. But if you just think about it in the context of military, sometimes in a military campaign, you don't need like a huge message. You just need directions, timestamps, stuff like that. And that can be proven to be quite effective. So it's not only text. I have also other examples for you. Here we are looking at the Mona Lisa, and perhaps you know that any picture today is actually composed of pixels. And pixels, they are encoded with three values, what we call RGB, so red, green, and blue. The idea is that the mixture of red, green, and blue is going to compose a specific color. Red, green, and blue, they are each of them encoded in 8 bits of information, so 8 zeros and ones, which means that with 24 zeros and ones, we can get the code for a specific color on a specific pixel. And the idea is called least significant bit, LSB. So least significant bits means that to the naked eye, if I modify slightly the red color or the green or the blue color, the eye is not going to make the difference in between a certain shade of pink and another shade of pink. And because it's too close and the eye cannot really understand. But if you do it so slightly, you can actually plant specific bits of information on the least significant bits. So basically, just to give you this example here, instead of having 144 red, we are going to put a 146 red, which is slightly off, completely not noticeable, but we are planting some information. So you can do that either on the bit that is on the most of the right, so the least significant bit, or sometimes you can use 2 bits of information if you want to go faster. So in this case, the hidden message would be 101001. As you can see, that's the example below with 146 red, 142 green, and 81 blue. So you might be wondering what's the point of doing that. The idea is that if you have a specific circle of friends or people that you want to send messages to, the idea is you are going to give them an original picture. So they have the picture as a reference. And when you want to send a secret message, you are going to modify that picture. So here, I'm showing you an example. You have the original picture on the left and you have the modified picture on the right. Of course, to the naked eye, it's impossible to distinguish. But the idea is that some pixels were modified on 4 different occasions on the picture. So again, if you don't have a specific software to analyze that, there is no point in trying, which means that hackers or people in general can use steganography to really convey hidden messages to the broad public. You could post a picture on Twitter, you could post a picture on any social media. Nobody would understand it, but those who have the reference picture would be able to distinguish and recover the message. So here, the idea is to look more precisely at the pixels in the first area. So in this case, we have 3 pixels, meaning 9 series of 8 bits, and that's enough to encode a character. So using the LSB method that I just described, so the least significant bit, so the bit that is the most on the right, and by changing it so slightly, we can convey a certain message. So for example, here in the area number 1, you have 9 series of bits. They don't need 9, they just need 8, because 8, as I told you, is enough to encode a character in ASCII. So in the first 8 series of bits, they are just going to put a 1 at the end. For the second one, they don't do anything. The third, they will put a 0, the fourth a 0, etc., etc. So the message that is encoded is 10000001, and that refers to the letter A in ASCII characters. So it's a lot of effort, again, just to encode a specific character. But if you do that in 10 different areas or 20 different areas in a picture, you can encode a short message. And again, you need to understand that from a forensic perspective, it's extremely hard to identify what would be the message, because first you need to exactly pinpoint the locations where the bits were modified, but you also need to have the right order. So you need to know that you have to look at first area number 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. And inside those pixels, you also need to understand which bits changed. Are we looking only at the most, the least significant bit, or the 2 least significant bits? There are different methods. So it's quite hard to find a message unless you have the original. It's impossible if you don't type the original image. And even if you have, you need to understand a bit more the dynamics of the groups and what kind of messages are they exchanging. That's all for steganography, short introduction. Now I will show you how it differs from crypto. Cryptography, sorry, also comes from the Greek, but it comes from a different word, which is cryptos. And cryptos really means hidden. So this time it's not in the concept of coverage, it's really in the concept of encoding. So the idea is that we are going to encode a secret message that it can only be read by the rightful intended recipients. And this message on its own is unreadable. And that's the main difference with steganography. In steganography, the message is not really transformed. It's there, but the difficulty is knowing where to look. Whereas in cryptography, even if your message is intercepted or somehow discovered, they cannot read it because the message is encoded with a secret key. So, of course, to decode the message, you need to be in possession of certain artifact. In this case, we call that a secret key or a cryptographic key. As we discussed in the previous video, cryptography can be used on either static files, so you could encrypt a specific document. You can also encrypt a larger volume, like a partition, or even a drive, or a repository, anything that you want. Or you can also apply cryptography to in-transit information, meaning certain protocols are encrypted. When you log in into a website, of course, your secrets and credentials are meant to be protected. Otherwise, a hacker could intercept your credentials and impersonate you. But that's more for later on. We will look at HTTPS and other authentication protocols, but that's just an illustration. So cryptography, static files, in-transit data as well. What does it look like? Here I'm showing you an example. We just have a text document. It's just a series of sentences. In this case, we have written, this is an encrypted file, this is an encrypted file, etc., etc. And the idea is that we are going to encode that, to encrypt that message, and it's immediately going to be complete gibberish. As you can see below, it's a mixture of unrecognized characters. Sometimes they are numbers, they are weird characters that are not really properly recognized, but that's the point. What's interesting to notice is that, the message itself is approximately the same size, at least the same number of characters. And here we are using an encryption key that's called AES. So that's the name of the algorithm. That's also something we will look further down in the series of videos. But basically, you can turn plain text into encrypted text with a certain key. And of course, you can do the opposite, meaning if you receive an encrypted message, so we call that a ciphertext, you can decrypt it using the proper key. Sometimes it's the same key, sometimes it's not, but that also we will cover in the next video. So that's all for today. I really wanted you to distinguish properly those two notions. We will give you some example of how they can be mixed also together. But please remember that if you are doing certain challenges on internet, steganography has little to do with cryptography beside having a Greek origin. Steganography is really about planting information into a mass of legitimate content, and it's then for you to analyze and you to understand what has been changed. Can be applied on text, images, as we have seen, but also sound and movies. And then we have cryptography, where we don't really care if the message is intercepted. The idea is that we are going to encode everything, and only the people who have the right keys are going to be able to read it. That's it for today. Thank you for your time, and see you soon in the next video.